Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain.
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain.
Oh! Who wasn't a cartoon in the late 90s?
Homer Simpson.
Ignorant and yellow and stupid is he.
Homer Simpson.
If nautical nuts, it's be something you wish.
Okay, I think we.
Yeah, we got the point. Yeah. Welcome to Soda Speak. I'm Evan Mead.
I'm Lyle Groniger.
And we have a special show for you today dedicated to a 90s show that we didn't quite get the chance to talk about for time's sake. 3 hours of nostalgia. It's a bit of an overload, but there is one show we wanted to dedicate a special episode to, and that is Spongebob Squarepants, which premiered in the May of 1999 at the Kids' Choice Awards. And it was created by a brilliant marine biologist, the late Stephen Hillenburg.
And we got our friend back from our 90s retrospective.
Yes, we do.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome back, Cody.
My name is Cody. Yes.
Yes.
I'm back again.
Cody's a filmmaker, 90s connoisseur, and he's with us today to do a deep dive into Bikini Bottom. Oh, pun intended, because, the ocean.
Oh, I'm ready.
That's
Are
great.
you ready?
Yeah.
Alright, so where did SpongeBob get started?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, Evan, Stephen Hillenburg is the creator of SpongeBob. He sadly passed away about 2 years ago.
2018, yeah.
2018,
May
yeah.
he rest in peace.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the early 90s, and he created before that, sorry, he worked at this
And a Marine Institute.
Yeah, a Marina Institute.
Yeah,
and he was
he
actually
loved the
doing
ocean.
illustrations for this magazine that was there at the time. Or maybe it was like a brochure. I can't really remember what it was called. But he was like drawing like a bunch of like wacky cartoons. Like there was like, I can't really remember the actual names for it, but he did have one called Bob the Sponge. That actually was it was drawn like an actual sponge under the sea.
Like a sea sponge.
A sea sponge, yeah. It wasn't the square that we would know later on. And then it's funny, he made a short film called Wormholes. That's a very like abstract black and white kind of like ethereal kind of like short film that he premiered at this film festival.
Okay.
And the creators of Rocko's Modern Life was there and saw it and was like blown away by it. He's like, this guy's talented, we need to have him involved. And he got the job on that show, and he directed a couple of dozen episodes actually, which I did not know about.
He was part of like the first 3 seasons. Yeah, he was a creative consultant.
Yeah. What's really interesting, a lot of the key players on Rocko's Modern Life did go on to create SpongeBob SquarePants.
That was the first job for a lot of people. Like, it was Tom Kenny's first gig. It was Mr. Lawrence's first gig.
Oh, yeah.
Which I actually haven't seen Rocko's Modern Life before.
Yeah, I haven't seen many episodes either. I saw the Netflix special.
Yes.
Static Cling.
That was a great
that was
parody, and that was a great examination of fandom culture and how fans treat reboots and resurrections and like just the overall story of a certain property that gets remade over the years just for the sake of being progressive. But the progressive element in that special for Rocko worked really well.
Yeah, it was nice.
And then he went off and did a little solo project, which would eventually become SpongeBob. He was trying to pitch it around to many different studios, and the way he pitched it as, he said, I want to make a show that's about a sea creature who's like Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
So it's like Jerry Lewis.
Can see Jerry Lewis.
Jerry Lewis, but under the sea is basically how he was pitching it. Then he was drawing a bunch of things like sponge and all that. And then he's like, "Hey, wouldn't it be funny if it was a sink sponge, like an ordinary house sponge?"
Yeah.
And then that was the first creation of SpongeBob as we know today.
Yeah. And after the end of Rocko's Modern Life, it didn't last particularly long. But after that was finished, a lot of the crew came back and worked with Hillenburg on this project.
Yeah.
And then became the show we know today.
Yep.
Now, an interesting fact about Cody, you're talking about how, like, at the history of SpongeBob, at one point, Hillenburg's creation was called SpongeBoy Ahoy.
Yes.
And they had to change the name to SpongeBob because the name SpongeBoy was already a trademark property. So, and the rest is history. But what I was just reading through fun facts is that Bikini Bottom is named after a real reef in the I think in the Pacific Ocean. Called Bikini Atoll, I believe the name is. We'll fact check that. But yeah, but it's named after the Bikini Atoll Reef, if my memory serves me. Okay. And that's where the origin Bikini Bottom, for the name Bikini Bottom came up. And fun fact, he came up with that name while he was driving in his car.
So what's the premise of SpongeBob? People are probably wondering. Well, unless you've been living under a rock, like Patrick Star, describe like what's the general premise of this cartoon?
The general premise of SpongeBob is he lives in a pineapple under the sea.
You don't say.
But yeah, he lives in a rather deserted neighborhood. His two neighbors are his best friend Patrick Star and his other neighbor, his coworker Squidward Tentacles. And Patrick lives under a rock, and Squidward lives in an Easter Island tiki head. And the show is about SpongeBob living in the underwater town of Bikini Bottom, where he goes on like daily adventures, gets into some shenanigans, and he works a full-time job as a fry cook at the under the sea restaurant, the Krusty Krab. Now, Cody, you were telling us earlier that you grew up in a coastal town in Canada, like, or at least you've been there.
Oh, no, like, well, I didn't grow up there. Like, I have a lot of family that lives out east in Nova Scotia. Too. Like, I've grown up around a lot of, like, you know, that fisherman kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, this kind of ties into why I love the show so much, is that it's just that kind of lifestyle and culture that I love. Like, I love the water. I love that I have kind of this spiritual kind of energy symmetry between water. It's kind of deep that I have, but it's very therapeutic to kind of just stare out at the sea sometimes, you know, and then like watching things like little things that they're not so specific of in the show, like little things that you pick up on if you grew up under that lifestyle. Like I was a kid going, "Oh my God, the Krusty Krab restaurant is a lobster trap." Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Like, I knew what it was right away.
I like the way they incorporate ocean life and try to make it anthropomorphic. Like, I like how jellyfish in this world are, like, kind of like a mix between butterflies and bees.
Yeah.
Or, like,
something I didn't initially know was that Bikini Bottom is made up of a lot of metallic, what looks like the mufflers from Earth trucks.
Yeah, it's just a lot of garbage.
And the reason why it's designed that way is because they wanted to give a very subtle environmental message about ocean pollution and ocean toxicity.
Wow, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, but when you see something like Finding Nemo, where it's the Great Barrier Reef is just impeccably designed, yes, that's one side of the ocean that we should cherish and respect, but you got SpongeBob where he's living in, like, he's walking in between metallic buildings that are basically just car parts and boat parts.
So who is SpongeBob?
Now, Spongebob Squarepants, he is an anthropomorphic sea sponge who is designed in the shape of a kitchen, but his parents and his grandmother, which do make appearances in some episodes, his parents are designed more so like real sea sponge, like how a real sea sponge would be designed, or how a real sea sponge would look under the ocean. SpongeBob, like you said earlier, Jerry Lewis as a cartoon character. Jerry Lewis was definitely one of SpongeBob's inspirations, and Charlie Chaplin was also in there. You can kind of tell. Also, Pee Wee Herman. He's kind of a mix of Jerry Lewis, Pee Wee Herman, and Charlie Chaplin, like as a character.
I can definitely see Pee Wee Herman.
He's very
childlike.
Yeah, he's very optimistic. He's very delightfully oblivious and naive.
Yeah. Yes.
But he's got a flare of brilliance to him. His attention to detail is absolutely impeccable, which I've often wondered when I talk about, the way mental health plays into the show. Like, I've often wondered, like, if he's got some traits of autism. But we'll get into that a bit later because of how detailed he is with his job and how organized he can be.
I kind of look at it as he is an adult because he has a home, he has a job, but he's always held on to that sort of childhood innocence.
Yeah.
That keeps him kind of positive, even about the things in life that we would normally in real life, kind of be like miserable about, or i.e. Squidward. Because I kind of invented this kind of like saying just based on the premise of the show, that you got to flip a couple Krabby Patties before you go out and jellyfish.
Yeah, and
and it's kind of stuck with me with that, where he is just positive. He's saying, I'm ready. He's positive going to flip burgers at a fast food joint.
Yeah.
It's like, kids, be like that, growing up. Don't be like our next character, Squidward. Tentacles.
Squidward Tentacles. Now, by the way, we forgot to mention SpongeBob, his voice actor is the great Tom Kenny, who has done tons of voiceover work over the years. Just an extremely talented gentleman. And
I'd say this is his best known role.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably.
Yeah. Longest running,
now,
too.
Squidward Tentacles is voiced by Roger Bumpus, who also had a part on Invader Zim. And
he's done a lot of stuff, too.
Yeah.
All these voice actors are incredibly talented.
I'll always remember him in Heavy Metal as the guy who takes an orb and grows massive and destroys a space station.
Oh yeah, that movie is a trip show, kids. Heavy Metal.
Oh, I love it.
Check it out. When you're older.
When you're older.
But Squidward Tentacles is like we said, his next door neighbor. He's his coworker, SpongeBob's coworker, and he is just the most miserable person who lives under the sea.
He's very narcissistic.
Narcissistic.
Negative.
Just negative about everything, and what's a key trait about him is that just deep down inside there's some love for SpongeBob.
There really is.
Or some, that, like I said, childhood innocence that wants to break free, but he's always blaming the whole world on all of his problems, and he's my favorite character. I will say that.
I say this.
That's
fine. When you're younger, you love SpongeBob. As you get older and you kind of notice how the world works, you kind of become more like a Squidward.
Oh no! Even as me, I've always loved Squidward.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's just something about because he's almost like another he's almost like the main character itself. Sometimes there's Squidward-centered episodes that are just around him.
Yeah.
And it's really just the antics and the misery that he goes through.
Yeah.
Just makes me laugh. It's almost like it's karma.
Yeah.
Most of the time, where it's like, because of who he is, everything comes around and bites him in the ass in the end.
Yeah.
So I just love that kind of archetype with his character.
Yeah. Now Squidward is a octopus. He's not a squid. I just want to clear that up. But what's interesting is, he's an octopus, but he's not really an octopus because octopuses have 8 limbs and Squidward only has 6 limbs.
Yeah.
Well, how about we just call him a cuttlefish and we'll call it a day.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing.
So Squidward, a lot of what Cody said, he's the cynic of the show, and his hobbies include painting, sculpting, playing his clarinet. Yes,
playing his clarinet is probably his number one trait.
He's like a. How old? Okay, so how old do you think SpongeBob is? Because we had this conversation before we started recording. How old do you think SpongeBob is? It's actually kind of tough to say, but Hillenburg himself, the creator, has confirmed in an interview that SpongeBob, his age is kind of up in the air, but he's old enough to be on his own, but still young enough to be working a job, an entry-level job, and going to driving school, or in this case, boating school. So I would say about he's probably a tween, SpongeBob.
Or early 20s. I would say even
early mid-20s.
Tops early 20s, but then Squidward, you definitely get the vibes that
late 30s, early 40s.
Oh, he's middle-aged.
He looks pretty old.
Very middle-aged, yeah.
Or maybe it's just his attitude that makes him look old.
Wouldn't it be funny if Squidward is 2 years older than SpongeBob, but his pessimism has just aged him so horribly.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crazy theories about SpongeBob, which we'll get into later.
One thing I always liked about Squidward is that he's totally unaware of how mediocre he is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or how subpar he is.
He's so passionate in what he does, but he doesn't realize that it's mostly ego that's driving him to do this.
And what's super cool is all these characters, in some form or another, are deeply relatable. Like that's one of the brilliant psychological episodes of it. We know the overly optimistic person who just the world is their clam, literally, or oyster, and literally we know the cynic who is but Squidward, you think that for a cynic, what's so brilliant about Squidward is you think that for a cynic he would be really down on himself, but he actually, his narcissism kind of compensates for.
He looks at himself as superior to everyone else around him. And then there's some characters who are just blissfully unaware, and they go day by day and not think about anything.
That's a perfect segue into our next character, SpongeBob's best friend in the whole world, Patrick Star.
I thought his name was Krusty Krab.
No, this is Patrick.
Not a Krusty Krab.
First place.
Patrick.
Patrick Star is the definition of an idiot.
Yeah.
Yes. He's SpongeBob's best friend who... It's funny, when I was kind of rewatching some of the earlier episodes, in season 1, there's some smarts with him sometimes, ironically.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Homer Simpson thing where it's he'll accidentally say something intelligent.
It's like a wild card of intelligence, yeah. But he's mainly known of just being an absolute idiot, and what's so beautiful about the dynamic between SpongeBob and Patrick is that SpongeBob never looks down on him.
No.
Because he is... Patrick is just lazy...
Unproductive.
Unproductive, unemployed.
I don't think
he
works.
Never looks down on him.
Well, there is one episode where Patrick does go to work and they have a fight about it. Ooh, so this is the thanks I get for working overtime. Overtime! But we're going to get that in when we talk about the episodes.
Yeah, no, Patrick is definitely surprisingly smart at sometimes.
Yeah.
The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.
Who's SpongeBob's other friend?
SpongeBob's the other close friend that SpongeBob has is Sandy Cheeks, the character, you pervert. Sandy Cheeks.
I didn't crack any jokes at Bikini Bottom. I didn't crack any jokes at Sandy Cheeks.
Nah.
Sandy Cheeks.
Okay, so Sandy Cheeks is a land squirrel who is a scientist at heart. She's living under the ocean in Bikini Bottom to study aquatic life. She walks around SpongeBob's environment as a land squirrel in a spacesuit.
That's a submarine. It's a diving suit.
Yeah, it's a diving suit mixed with a NASA spacesuit. But she's she's deeply patriotic. That's one of you're never quite sure where any of these characters are from geographically, but for some reason Sandy is from Texas. They talk a lot about how she's from Texas.
Well,
her accent shines through.
It's funny because Texas is a very dry state. There's no lakes or anything there, so having a dry land character like that in the middle of the ocean is funny.
So, quite honestly, she's the polar opposite of everything around her, and she just loves it. She's not a miserable character. She likes to have fun. She likes to get into the world of her sea critter friends.
She's incredibly competitive, too.
Oh, yes, she is.
She and SpongeBob, always try to go head-to-head all the time, whether it's karate or racing or anything.
Yeah.
And it goes deeper with that as well, where her character kind of represents that kind of foreign friend that we all would have. Where, they're from either overseas or somewhere else, and SpongeBob always embraces her for the differences that she has. It's and that's kind of hey kids, do that as well. If someone's from somewhere else, respect it, love it, learn from it, embrace it.
If you have a friend who's small-minded but still is there for you, never look down on them, treat them with respect. And Sandy is the new kid in town. Make the new kid feel welcome no matter how foreign she is. Yeah,
she's the
squirrel in.
You remember that episode where they do dares and dare SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs to go up on land,
Oh, yes.
And they actually like it. It's like, oh, I could build a new rock up here.
Yeah.
And they get attacked by seagulls.
Which is ironic
like
because starfish can live on both sea and
I think most
land.
of them can, except an octopus. An octopus doesn't last long outside of water.
Yeah.
It'll survive, but it has to be in water very quickly.
Yeah. And there's the first episode literally deals with how SpongeBob and his friends react to an air-based environment. Where the first episode is where Sandy is introduced, and she lives in her tree dome, which is literally a glass dome with a habitat that Sandy can survive in. She's an air breather, so she lives in this tree dome, and SpongeBob comes to visit her because he made a new friend. He wants to impress her. And there's also a brilliant metaphor in this episode for a first date where, like, you know, the girl, you like the new girl, you want to impress her, but you just can't, like, because she's out of your world and you can't get into hers.
I thought the first episode was Help Wanted.
Something we gotta clarify about the episodes. The episodes are all very similar to Arthur. They are 11 minutes a pop. It's a 22-minute show, including commercials. And each episode, there's one cartoon that's 11 minutes, and then another cartoon that's 11 minutes.
Okay.
So
actually, the fun fact, it is technically Help Wanted. That was technically the pilot that they pitched to Nickelodeon. Which, first of all, for a pilot episode, they knocked it out of the park.
I rewatched it, and
like,
it's like classic SpongeBob. Like, they knew exactly what they were doing with the premise.
About him just trying to get the job at the Krusty Krab and then saving them at the end from all those anchovies that are all just like hungry.
8.
And then
there's a lot of
the Tiny Tim song.
The funny thing is that if you have the DVDs of seasons, like the individuals of 1, 2, and 3, Help Wanted isn't in season 1 for some reason, but it's in a special feature in season 3.
What?
It's very strange that I noticed.
That's so weird.
I don't know what that was about, because technically, because I remember when it would air on TV sometimes, it would go Help Wanted, and then a very small individual short called Reef Blower. That's like a silent short.
Oh yeah, because like Help Wanted's a very brief episode.
And then it would be Tea at the Tree Dome, the one that Evan was talking about. So technically, the structure is 3 episodes, and that's the only time it's ever happened like that, with just that little one in between.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
But
occasionally they will make like Arthur and just make 1 half-hour episode.
There's the thing about the Help Wanted episode is, like, I didn't watch it before I watched the SpongeBob movie, and there's so many like allusions in the SpongeBob movie to the first episode, like the I'm ready and the way he gets up in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, that's all taken straight. And then when Patrick sits out of the rock, it's just like in the first episode.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's talk about 2 characters at the same time, actually. Let's kind of shuffle it around a bit.
Okay.
It's where SpongeBob kind of looks at these two as like the real world, the adults of the world. And their rivalry between them and their fast food joints.
Oh, yes. Mr. Krabs.
Mr. Krabs.
And Plankton.
Yes.
Now, just to comment very briefly on Mr. Krabs. Mr. Krabs is my mother's favorite character. Squidward and Mr. Krabs are my mother's favorite character. Mr. Krabs is he runs the Krusty Krab restaurant. He is the sole protector and sole owner of the Krabby Patty secret formula, and I'm bringing that up because that's how it plays into the dynamic with Plankton. Mm-hmm. Now, Mr. Krabs. How do I sum up Mr. Krabs? You can sum up in one quote. Hello, I like money.
He's fucking greedy.
Yeah. There's nothing on earth.
And cheap.
There's nothing on earth like the feeling of greed.
And he's voiced by Clancy Brown.
Who yes.
Out of everyone in the cast, probably has the most prolific career.
He's been in a lot of things.
Yeah, he was even in Shawshank Redemption.
He was. And fun fact about Shawshank, the air raid siren that is used at Shawshank Prison, the same exact sound effect is used for an air raid siren at the Krusty Krab whenever there's like an emergency situation and the restaurant has to lock down. No.
Wow.
Like, he probably... isn't that great how, like, Clancy just put in a word with Frank Darabont? It's like, hey, I'm in this cartoon where it's just nautical nonsense. Can I use that prison sound?
Well, Shawshank was 94. SpongeBob didn't come out till, like,
well, it takes a long-ass time to develop a cartoon, so this is right around the time that Steven Hillenburg would have been, like, drawing, like, what would be SpongeBob.
Another thing, and we'll move on. I just wanted to point out one thing. there's actually early recordings from 1996 of like just kind of test like voice testing and all that of certain characters trying to get the characters right. So it was Tom Kenny playing SpongeBob, and it was actually Steven Hillenburg playing Squidward. And it's like Steven Hillenburg it sounded like all he was doing was just plugging his nose and just talking.
I mean, that's basically Squidward.
Yeah, but it was cool.
Yeah. Just for the record, I think Squidward has one of the most annoying laughs of any cartoon.
His nose, it's like you're squeezing it every time he's laughing.
Undulates as he laughs.
I honestly, if Roger Bumpus is just squeezing his nose whenever he laughs, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And Tom Kenny has a very similar like vocal trick
where he like tickles his Adam's apple.
He makes he described it as you make a sound that sounds like a dolphin, or you're letting the air out of a balloon, which is. But then you put your hand right on your Adam's apple and start just moving it up and down, and suddenly you have.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
That's funny.
But
it's a very cool technique actually to make a laugh. Yeah. That iconic.
Anyways, so Mr. Krabs, he's just greedy, and the extent to which he is greedy is quite disturbing, actually. Like
it gets pretty bad in
when we talk about the episodes, we'll get into how greedy Mr. Krabs can really be.
And we'll get into one of our favorite. We'll get into our favorite lines.
Is there any other dynamic with Mr. Krabs other than his need for money?
He's a hard worker. Like he will drive in his mind. Like the one quote I'll never forget was. Come on! Time is money! And if yous boys is wasting time, then yous is wasting money! And that's just sick. So, he like works his employees, like, into the ground, to the point where he will actually charge them for breathing.
Yeah.
That's how greedy this guy is. And his arch business rival is a megalomaniac who works across the street at a restaurant called the Chum Bucket, and his name is Plankton. Voiced by Mr. Lawrence, boys and girls.
Mr. Lawrence.
Mr. Lawrence is actually a writer on the show.
He is?
Yeah. I think he directs, too.
Fun fact, do you know what Mr. Lawrence's first name is?
What?
Doug.
Doug
he rarely ever goes by his first name.
I mean, it catches my eye. There's not too many people who just go by Mr. Yeah. I thought you were going to say his name was Larry or something.
And he also voices Larry, which
he
he does voice Larry the lobster.
Yeah.
I said crab, it's a lobster.
That's funny. There's three like side characters that I look at in the show, which is Larry.
Yeah.
Who's like this like
he's a bodybuilder.
He's a bodybuilder. He's a
lifeguard.
He loves his body, puts a lot of pride into it. There's kind of like
this. Lift some weights.
There's kind of like a
jealousy, an ego complex.
And a very like And
he's not a bad guy though.
Then there's Mr. Krabs' daughter Pearl.
Oh yeah.
Who's a whale.
We could talk about Pearl briefly.
Because it's so funny because when you say like his daughter is a whale. That's probably one of the most insulting things a father could ever say about their daughter. So I think that's even funnier. Growing up, knowing like that was what they were intending on it being.
The innuendos in this show and the symbolism
daughter's a whale.
It's just hilarious.
My dad.
And the third character is Mrs. Puff.
Mrs. Puff. Now we didn't talk much about Plankton. We kind of get ahead of ourselves.
Let's talk about Puff and then we'll get into Plankton because those are small characters.
Yeah. So. Mrs. Puff is SpongeBob's boating school instructor. Now, she runs a driving school for undersea folk, and SpongeBob is the student from hell to the point where he gives Mrs. Puff psychological episodes. I am not kidding around about that.
Where she's happier to be in jail rather than teaching SpongeBob.
No, but like
weights, no more SpongeBob.
Okay, so Mrs. If you look at the mental health dynamic, I once joked about how when I was just leaving high school, I came up with a theory that that a lot of the core characters in SpongeBob are allegories for mental disorders. Like SpongeBob could easily represent either ADHD or Asperger's syndrome. Patrick is mental retardation. Unless you can think of anything else. Squidward is depression. Mr. Krabs would be OCD with his obsession for money. Plankton is megalomania. Mm-hmm. And Mrs. Puff would be anxiety.
What would Sandy fall into?
Sandy, I don't think like being extreme patriotism, or I think maybe borderline personality disorder.
I could see borderline personality disorder.
Well, because Sandy can. One thing we forgot to mention about Sandy when we described her character is that
bipolar disorder.
Bipolar more accurate.
She can flip on a dime.
I know slightly more about bipolar than I do about borderline personality disorder.
Okay.
So I know that SpongeBob, when SpongeBob and Sandy are together, like as friends, her mood can change on a dime from really overly happy to impatient to angry in a fraction of a second.
Yeah, she's very unpredictable.
Yeah.
Anyways,
and Mrs. Puff, on the note of Mrs. Puff would be severe anxiety. Now, Mrs. Puff is one of the, after Squidward, she's probably the most depressing character on the whole show, because there is one episode where she comes into class, sorry I'm late, ladies and gentlemen. I was at a stoplight and I had the whole I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life conversation rear its ugly head, and then they just don't give a shit like when they look at her. Like, so Mrs. Puff,
oh I forgot about that line.
I don't remember that.
Mrs. Puff is a sympathetic character, but when the show was in its heyday, there is a sense of charm to her. Like she's
very maternal. Like I like the sound of her voice too.
Yeah, it's that teacher that, you can still respect, but you also know that she is paid to like you and to look out for you. But one of the it's even in the show's heyday, it is kind of obvious that she does not like SpongeBob, and when the show actually hits the decline, it gets way, way darker. Like, there's an episode where she actually shrivels up into, because she's a pufferfish, and pufferfish, if they're agitated, they will blow up. Like, they'll expand their bodies.
That's their defense mechanism.
And there's one episode in the show's decline where Mrs. Puff shrivels up into nothing, and her anxiety is just so bad that she can't puff up anymore. And there is there's also another episode where she flat out tries to murder SpongeBob. Like, that's the degree to which this character was taken. But we'll get into that in the decline of the show.
Yeah.
So
moving back to our megalomaniac.
Yeah. So not much more to say about Mrs. Puff. She not so secretly despises SpongeBob. She's super anxious, but she runs a boating school and she's his instructor, and he's the student from hell.
Yeah, that's Mrs. Puff. Now back to Plankton. Plankton, the nemesis of Mr. Krabs. His only goal really is to get the secret formula, because I think that's like his idea of what will make his restaurant better.
The secret formula to the Krabby Patty. Which
Patty.
is like the Big Mac of the Krusty Krab.
I'd laugh if it's just like that was an island dressing or something.
Yeah, pretty much.
It is. Yeah,
But he has a wife. Who's a computer.
He's married to a computer.
Named Karen.
Okay, Karen.
Okay, Karen.
And she literally speaks to the manager of the Chum Bucket every fucking day.
Yeah.
She's married to the manager of the Chum Bucket.
Oh, man. I wonder if that's where that originated.
I'd like to speak to the manager of the Chum Bucket.
Yes.
Now, another fun fact, the voice actress who voices Karen, the computer wife, is Tom Kenny's wife in real life.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Nice.
Oh,
I like her voice.
I think it's Jill Talley or Jill Talley. I gotta look this up, but it's, I think, Jill Talley. So let me just confirm this. But yeah, keep talking about Plankton.
Well, Plankton, I just find the whole irony behind his character just one of the most, like, it's like a wild card of funny. Yeah. Sometimes in the show, where it has like that Pinky in the Brain kind of mentality, where he's like an evil genius, so small, but like there's just something so like, I mean, it's very classic, like Looney Tunes, like Roadrunner, like where he has a motivation, he has a plan, he's evil, but then like just everything goes wrong.
It falls apart.
Yeah,
it
all goes wrong. He keeps buying shitty products from Acme, and they never work. So it's like there's very much a Wile E. Coyote road.
Well,
absolutely,
I do like the
or
episodes.
a Bugs Bunny Daffy Duck dynamic.
Yes. But I do like the episodes where like Plankton isn't really like the antagonistic force. He's just hanging out with the characters, like the Band Geeks episode.
Yeah,
I love the part. I love the part where he's trying to play a harmonica, but he's so tiny that it takes so much out of him.
He's trying to run to like each part of the.
Do extensive torture count?
Well, that kind of leads us into, like, now let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the show, which is just our favorite episodes or our favorite quotes. Just
or
things
noteworthy episodes.
Noteworthy episodes. Now, before we get into it, let's just try to, like, give people some context that when it comes to logic, this show just doesn't give a crap about that word. It never... No, but especially this show.
Yeah.
Like, when you really think about it, like, there's... fire underwater sometimes.
Yeah.
There's I mean, they're like you said before, the boating school. Their cars are boats, motorized boats.
I have a question. You know, I was talking about this yesterday with Evan, but like, you know, in the background, there's always like those like sunny flowers.
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
It's just pretty backdrops.
Like in the ocean. Like, what is it? Like,
it's probably like algae or an algae collection.
Yeah.
It looks like a leg just got dropped in the ocean.
Well, so to talk about the noteworthy episodes, there is one thing we'd like to stress. Like all great animated epics, this show is still running today. That's not the great part about it, but its heyday.
No.
It came on the air in the summer of 1999. And it's still running, so it's on its 21st year.
I can't believe that.
And 21 seasons. The only other shows I can think of that are running nearly as long are The Simpsons, which is at 30 seasons, and Arthur, which is in its 23rd season.
Yeah, and like Family Guy and South Park.
Right.
Yeah, I was shocked that I was like, whoa, Family Guy's been on for that long?
Well, to be fair,
Family
Guy did get canceled and then resurrected. So
True,
yeah. But anyway, so the episodes we're mainly going to be talking about, our favorites, exist in the Golden Age, which spanned from 1999 to the winter of 2004 when the Spongebob Squarepants movie premiered.
So the first 3 seasons.
The first 3 seasons, yes. So
like we're old school fans of this show.
Yeah.
So like when Steven Hillenburg was on the show with his like original staff, like that was the first 3 seasons, and including the movie, and then. After that, seasons 4 plus, but even though they kind of came back for a couple episodes later on, and also for the sequel that came out in 2015. Yeah, they kind of came back too for that. We kind of look at it as like that's not only the golden age, but it really shows because even I don't know if you guys felt this, but even as a kid trying to watch that first episode of season 4, or just I don't even know if it was the first episode, but just trying to watch season 4, something felt off.
Yeah, we'll get to that like when we get to that, but the point is, so Cody, what is your favorite episode like of this era or from the whole show? Because I tuned out after the movie pretty much.
Oh, me too. Yeah. I'm sure we all did. Yeah.
After 2000, after 2000, there were a couple episodes that I did watch and enjoyed to a degree, but after 2006, I was done.
Yeah.
After 2005, I was done. But yeah, so I followed it for the first 3 and a bit seasons. But what's your favorite episode from your experience with SpongeBob?
My all-time favorite episode is it's kind of interesting because I know we talked about this before in the last podcast about certain cartoons where there's 2 categories, either ones that kind of hit you on an emotional level or ones that you just flat out thought it was entertaining and hilarious, right?
Yeah.
Now. The majority of my favorite episodes of SpongeBob lean way heavily into the entertaining, funny episods, because that's what this show is, right?
That was its strength.
But there was one episode that hit me on an emotional level in a... I sound so exaggerated when I say this, but like it actually hit me in a very profound way at a time in my life. And it's the episode Ripped Pants.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic.
That's a very good classic.
So Ripped Pants is the premise. I'll just kind of quickly go over it. It's just basically about SpongeBob trying to impress Sandy on the beach, and then he gets kind of jealous that like Larry's starting to steal his thunder a bit, showing off. And then when he's trying to lift weights to show off, he accidentally rips his pants.
Yeah.
Which is also a very clever thing, because like adults are like, oh, okay, it's a kid's show. Clearly he didn't shit his pants. He ripped his pants.
Yeah.
So everyone finds it the most hilarious thing ever, and he's getting all the attention, and he does it like a few more times, and everyone still finds it funny. Then you slowly start to see people around him start to go, okay,
well, he's taking it too far.
Yeah, it's okay. It's a bit much, a little too far. And then he completely crosses the line at the end that actually upsets Sandy as well, and everybody, where he fakes his own death, trying to rip his pants.
Yeah.
And he ends up being kind of alone and rejected. Then he finds that there's some people out there that felt the same way, that they're kind of losers and outcasts. And then he learns, basically the moral of the episode is that just be yourself and you'll find friends, right?
Yeah.
Now, this episode came out around the time that I was in, I had to have been maybe in like grade 3 or 4, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
And I was that kid. Yeah. I was that kid in the playground trying to make friends as in the most desperate ways possible, just for a laugh, just for attention, just for all that. And there were times where, like, I wasn't even noticing that people would just kind of drift away. Yeah. Because they probably thought it was so freaking annoying and it was just too much for them. So when I saw that episode, usually cartoons are just, like, at that point was just sort of a distraction. Yeah. Right? Like, oh, funny, da-da-da. That episode, when I watched it, I was like, wow, that's me. Yeah. And I kind of just changed myself a bit and was sort of like, okay, just be cool and be yourself, and then you'll find friends. And I'm not kidding. Yeah. Since I had just applied that onto my life, because I never really talked about people with that, or no one noticed that about myself, like parents or no one noticed that about me just kind of being a show-off. When I just applied that simple logic just to ease things down, be myself, don't try to overly impress, not only did I feel better about myself, but I definitely got more friends on board in my life. So,
which is exactly what happens to SpongeBob in the episode.
Yeah. So the fact that I call that one my favorite. It's not the funniest episode by any means, but it's definitely one that is like just hit me right in the heart.
Oh, it's very memorable. Yeah, that's a good pick.
What's yours?
What's yours, Evan?
My favorite is what a lot of people describe as the magnum opus of SpongeBob. My favorite episode is would have to be Band Geeks.
Band Geeks.
Now, Band Geeks, to give you the concept of Band Geeks, because we talked about how Squidward... Oh, just before I forget, Tom Kenny's wife is Jill Talley, and she did voice Karen, the computer wife.
Okay.
So, moving on to Band Geeks. Band Geeks is an episode where Squidward is going about, like, his, narcissistic artist life who isn't as great as he thinks. And he gets a phone call, an obnoxious-ass phone call from his high school rival, Squilliam Fancy Son, another octopi guy who looks... Picture Squidward, but a more annoying voice, a unibrow, and he wears a fancy bathrobe because he's, like, filthy rich. So Squilliam Fancy Son calls Squidward up and asks him, how's life? And it's that, like, stuck-up asshole from high school who calls you to rub it in your face every now and again. But it's like, you both have seen Clerks 2, right?
Yeah.
Like, remember when Jason Lee... the pickle fucker comes in and taunts them. It's basically that. But this, instead of, he basically says, my band is going to play the Bubble Bowl next week, but I'm busy and I can't make it, so maybe your band could cover for us. Oh, that's right, you don't even have a band. And then Squidward, just to shut this guy up, says, I do have a band and we are going to play the Bubble Bowl. And then as soon as he hangs up the phone, he has to pull a band right out of his ass, and he does so by taking all the key characters who have speaking roles in SpongeBob and dragging them to an abandoned warehouse for band practice every night of the week for a week. And it's really cool because you get to see these characters like function as a unit, and it's one of the few times in the show's history where they do that. And you basically get to... It's funny because Squidward has to take people who aren't musically inclined at all, and it also features one of the funniest lines in the whole show that did become a meme later on. Is mayonnaise an instrument?
No, Patrick. Mayonnaise is not an instrument. Horseradish isn't an instrument either.
Cody, weren't you telling us about like a guy who actually I can't remember, one of you told me about this guy who took like mayonnaise jars and turned them into instruments.
Yeah, there's a video on YouTube of a guy that took a jar of mayonnaise and like kind of shook it up to make like that plop sound. Yeah, and like tapped on the jar like percussion. Yeah, and just made a whole bunch of things and put it into Pro Tools and just made like a beat with mayonnaise. So he did prove technically mayonnaise can be an instrument. So I thought it was kind of funny.
That's so great. That's great. So back to the episode. The band actually does make some progress despite the fact that there's so few of them are musically inclined. And then they straight up steal a joke from Arthur about playing loud. But this is a rare instance where they steal a joke and they make it funnier. Like the joke, because Arthur did this, like, let's start the show off with a bang, and then they just do a boom. But the Squidward says, people talk loud when they want to act smart, right? And then Plankton's like, correct! Then, so if we play loud, everyone will think we're good. And a 1, and a 2, and a 1, 2, 3, 4.
It cuts to a wide shot outside exterior. All the windows burn.
Yeah. And then Squidward's like, okay, new theory. Maybe we should play so quietly no one can hear us.
His face is like smeared.
Yeah, like
a feet away.
Yeah.
In the G-force.
So, but then a fight erupts, and then the fight erupts, and then once class is over, they all head home, and then Squidward is like tearfully like saying, thanks a lot, guys. Like, I had a dream. You crushed it. Thanks for nothing. He literally says thanks for nothing and walks away in despair.
Yeah.
So once the band realizes the error of their ways, SpongeBob gets them together and says, you know what, let's do this for Squidward because he brought us together and we let him down. So the next day, Squidward goes to the entrance of the Bubble Bowl where Squilliam actually shows up. I thought the fucker said he wasn't available, but well, it's a fucking cartoon. Who cares? And
he wanted to watch the tragedy happen.
Yeah, he did. And
he wanted to watch the fireworks.
Even though the fucker said he was busy, he shows up to watch Squidward fail.
Now, but wait, sorry to interrupt. I have to mention this just so people get some context. Is that normally a Squidward-centered episode ends off with just him in complete misery or nothing works out.
Yeah, he just gets fucked over so hard.
As we get to the Super Bowl, or not the Super Bowl, the Bubble Bowl.
Well, I was just about to talk about that.
Basically,
the Bubble Bowl is literally the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and it's basically the characters from Bikini Bottom go into a water dome, and they're like they go through a shaft elevator up to the mainland where there's a football arena, and it's basically fish playing for humans in an encased bubble dome in the middle of the halftime show. So they play the song Sweet Victory, and it is one of the most awesome, epic musical numbers in animation history. Like I'm not even messing around. Like, Be Our Guest in Beauty and the Beast, Eat Your Heart Out. No, it's not that good.
Fuck?
It's not that good, guys. It's good.
Sweet Victory is a very like kind of journey, kind of like kind of
it's like
ballad kind of
song. It's glam metal,
yeah. It has like a very triumphant kind of vibe to it.
Now, what's really interesting is in this same interview that I read when I was a kid with Steven Hillenberg, they asked him like, where did you get that song, that kick-ass song, Sweet Victory, for the end of Band Geeks? And then he says, we originally weren't going to use this song. We were originally going to do like something like Stars and Stripes, and someone found the song. It was a happy accident, and it just worked so well that we had to include it. And I am so glad that they did, because if they did something generic like Stars and Stripes, the episode wouldn't have had an appeal. But Squidward gets to humiliate his stuck-up high school rival, and he gets to have the time of his life. The episode ends with a freeze frame of Squidward jumping into the air and the biggest smile on his face.
That's like the happiest I've ever seen Squidward.
Yeah, it's such a rewarding feeling.
Yeah. And I remember the first time I watched that episode as a kid, and I just remember having a smile on my face. Like I actually felt so good. Like it was a very
feel good episode.
It was a very subversion of expectations, because again, you expected the whole performance to go to shit.
Yeah.
But they end up knocking it out of the park, and you can see it in Squidward's face. Just that rare moment where he's like, everything worked out. Yeah. It's like, okay, you've earned that moment.
Yeah.
You've earned that moment.
Of course, they had to kind of backtrack that a whole season later when Squilliam does come back and Squidward has to turn the Krusty Krab into a 5-star restaurant.
Which is still a funny episode.
That's a funny episode.
But you learn something about Squilliam.
Yeah.
He's also a cashier.
Really? Of course not. I'm filthy, stinking rich. But anyways,
that's your favorite?
That Band Geeks is my favorite. And something I'd like to point out that Cody has brought up a couple times: SpongeBob episodes occasionally have morals, but on the opposite end, they have anti-morals. Like, sometimes the show does not give a fuck about morals.
I almost look at it as the show because a lot of cartoon shows will have a message for kids like right in front of your face, like it's right there.
Yeah.
And there's something kind of unique about SpongeBob that feels like there is a message just buried under nonsense.
There really is.
That's the show. That's really the show. That's why like it clicks with so many people or so many kids even. Like we saw that there's a message that they're trying to tell us very subtly. But all they're trying to do is just to have us have a funny time with this random creative wackiness.
Yeah, well, another episode that has like a really powerful moral is that actually applied to me was The Secret Box, which is also in the same episode. It's the episode that comes before Band Geeks, I believe. Okay. So, The Secret Box is where Patrick has a secret box, and SpongeBob. The whole episode is SpongeBob trying to see what's inside. And he actually gets to a point where he goes too far and breaks into Patrick's rock to see what's inside. And then Patrick flat out ends the friendship immediately. And it's like, nah, you can look inside if you really want to. And there's nothing in it, or so you think. So the episode ends on a what did we just learn? But in the center act of the episode, it's don't touch your friends' things without your permission, and it's a very good no means no episode because Patrick repeatedly says, like, no, SpongeBob, it's a secret for a reason. Stop. Yeah. And there's a charm to SpongeBob that unfortunately gets lost later in the show, but...
Okay, so...
So...
Lyle, what's your favorite episode?
Yeah. Hi, Lyle, we forgot.
Yeah, I've been quiet for a while. Yeah, we did this in the morning.
This is Lyle. He's been quiet for a while.
Your favorite?
I concede, Evan Mead. Alright, so my favorite episode is a very early episode. It's Naughty Nautical Neighbors. I think it's the best episode of, like, when... There's a lot of episodes where SpongeBob and Patrick drive Squidward nuts, but this one's my favorite, and I'll tell you why later. So it's basically, Squidward makes a souffle.
Like Arthur's dad.
Just like Arthur's goddamn dad. His only goal is to make a souffle. Yeah. And he's like all happy, he gets dressed up for the moment, and he's like ready to enjoy his souffle. And then he's just like, and he sees like SpongeBob and Patrick are in the backyard just like playing around with their bubbles. And it's kind of like when you have friends in high school who sit next to each other, but they send each other Facebook messages.
Yeah.
They're just like, hi, Patrick.
And this was in 1999, so MSN would have been just being born.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing.
AOL chat would have been very new.
Yeah, and Squidward's annoyed, so he whips up some souffle fluid and like makes his own bubbles, but they're nasty comments. And he makes the two best friends think that they hate each other. And then they get in a big spat, and it has one of my favorite exchanges. It's like, well, you're a turkey. What's that? It's what you are. Yeah, you're a bigger one. Yeah, well, you're still yellow. And you know what else is yellow?
What?
You are. And Squidward's dying laughing. And they like SpongeBob and Patrick just have a huge spat and a huge falling out. They don't want to see each other anymore. And Squidward's like reveling in the moment, and while he's eating his souffle, he does something which you should never do, and that's laugh with a full mouth of food and a fork in your mouth. He swallows the fork and nearly
chokes on it.
People type it on YouTube. Squidward choking on a fork for like 10 hours.
Oh god!
I got about 5 hours in.
You got 5 hours in? What the fuck is wrong with you?
I'm not kidding. It's one of the funniest things ever. No, I didn't get that long, but it's honestly one of the funniest images you'll ever see. It's a GIF. It's a born GIF.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding.
But anyways, this sets the catalyst for the entire episode, where Patrick saves Squidward's life, and is like, oh, gee, Patrick, you're a great friend.
You forgot the quote that Patrick uses to save Squidward. So it's hilarious.
Like, oh, Squidward, you're choking. I know what to do, but I should wash my hands first. Oh, well.
It's kind of relevant for the day.
Oh. Yeah,
you know, for the times we live in now.
Yeah, that's funny.
The day and age.
Yeah, but anyway, so like Patrick saves Squidward, and Squidward's like, oh, you're a real friend. And then, in order to make SpongeBob jealous, Patrick hangs out with Squidward for the day. And then that sets up SpongeBob to be all alone, because he doesn't have any friends nearby. And so, like, after, like, Squidward kicks Patrick out for, like, sleeping during his clarinet practice, he cracks his back and is like, oh, my back. I can quote this whole episode.
Yeah.
Like,
My favorite quote from that is the exchange between Squidward and Patrick when Squidward was trying to show his clarinet. He's like, "And now I shall perform Solitude in E minor."
Yeah, E minor. All right.
Yeah, E minor. Like he clearly doesn't know what E minor.
Yeah, he's looking right at the camera.
He's excited about the most not exciting part of the
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't know this song if you.
Well, it's a sweet episode because they do mend their friendship. They do.
Yeah, I mean, like after a lot of back and forth where SpongeBob takes Squidward and Patrick takes Squidward, and to the point where Squidward's he's just had it because these two won't leave him alone, and he needs to get them back together and have his hair. So he comes up with a fake date where it's like, come have some soda with me, boy. And like
Club soda,
the worst soda. I fucking hate club soda. Anyway, so like
we call it pop here in Canada.
Well, yeah, but club soda is its own thing. It's basically sparkling water, and it's gross. But anyways, like he ropes SpongeBob and Patrick to sit in the same room, and they're arguing and they're fighting over drinks. He's like, "See, Squidward, he's Squidward," and they're like fighting over like having the most soda, until they're all fat and bubbly from
not
all
just
of it.
fat, like morbidly obese.
Like they're just inflated fat, and then like Squidward's like, I'm gonna get some more pop, and he just leaves them alone, and then. They start laughing their asses off when they burp, and it creates so much pressure in the house from all the bubbles that they destroy Squidward's house by accident.
Yeah.
Squidward's like, what did you learn, Squidward? You left them alone, and this is what happened, or something like that.
Yeah.
And SpongeBob and Patrick are friends again, and Squidward's back to hating them because they keep destroying his life.
Yeah, literally.
I think he's jealous. How pathetic.
Yeah.
So that's a good episode, and the reason why is that unlike most episodes where they just torment Squidward, it's because they're doing it out of spite of each other, and that's an interesting dynamic. Because usually it's just they're oblivious to what Squidward needs or wants, but in this one it's like they're using Squidward to get back at the other one.
Yeah. He's like the middleman.
He's stuck in the middle of all this. And I've had friendships where I like have a spat with a friend, and I use another friend to kind of like get some insight on what my other friend's doing because I don't want to talk to them. And I've had a lot of friendships that go that way. And when it mends together, it's a really nice feeling because we don't have to be like batting heads all the time. And that happened to me a lot in my childhood, and I think that's why I like that episode so much.
Yeah. I think I didn't talk about. You guys talked about why you guys liked Ripped Pants and Nautical Neighbors. I think I like Band Geeks just because like it's an artist's journey in the most hilarious but heartfelt way possible. Like he starts off bad, but then he creates something inadvertently so kick-ass that it's just rewarding to see.
And if you ever want the opposite of that episode in like the funniest way, you gotta watch that episode Culture Shock.
That's the one with the talent show.
Yeah, the talent show one, where Squidward he thinks it's all going to be like a one-man show of just him. He's preparing everyone and hyping up. It's going to be the most amazing thing ever.
Yeah.
And then he looks down on everybody like you're secondary. Like everyone, I think he says a line like, "You guys all think that you're here because this is your one time for the big shot. Well, it's not. It's mine."
Wow.
Like, he says that shit. And then SpongeBob's so eager and excited. He wants to be in the show. He wants to do, like, something something very talented. And Squidward's like, no, you get to clean up after the show.
And I love how, like, SpongeBob upstages Squidward by just mopping the floor.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, they go through all these, all these people, and it's just so, like, there's no talent at all. Like, we forgot to mention one character.
What character did we forget to mention?
Meow.
Gary.
SpongeBob snail that acts like a cat.
Yeah.
That's all he is.
Adorable.
But I was gonna say, like, Gary's in the talent show, and all he's saying is meow, 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 like poetry, and then he cuts to Sandy. Oh, he has such a way with words.
Have you seen the YouTube parody of "And Our Poetry" by Gary? And it's just a rap song, but there's a comedy rap song.
Why do I say the N word?
Yeah,
because our dicks are bigger.
Oh yeah.
Such a way with words.
No,
I've seen that
but
video.
they go back through all those characters, and then Squidward ends up doing this like bizarre dance at the end.
It's like he's trying to be like artsy and out there, and he thinks he's so great because of it, but he's really not.
The crowd hates him. They start booing him. They boo him off stage. Then the show's over. He's like, SpongeBob, clean up the show afterwards. SpongeBob just goes on and mops up, and then you just hear the crowd go, "Whoa, yeah, all right, yeah." They start clapping.
Yeah.
They think the most talented. The show got that bad. That's
an allegory. It's like, if you're gonna like rise to success or have a journey, treat the janitor that you meet along the way with some goddamn respect.
Well, treat the audience with respect. Don't insult their intelligence.
Because Squidward like comes right out and talks down to them. I remember that.
I know we'll kind of be jumping around a lot, but let's.
I want to talk about noteworthy episodes.
Yeah. I want to get to noteworthy episodes as well. Like, okay, probably my second favorite episode of SpongeBob is Something Smells.
Oh yeah, I find that episode like disgusting. The first half of it, the second half is really funny.
So basically, it's about SpongeBob wakes up on a Sunday morning, and the first thing he wants to do is make a sundae. And he has no ice cream, so he decides to improvise by making a concoction of ketchup, onions, and peanut plants that were growing at the windowsill.
And not even good peanut plants. It's like deformed and rotting. And
yeah, it's gross.
Yeah, this is by default the grossest episode we have so far. Thanks, Cody.
So and then he eats it all, and then he has really bad breath afterwards. And then anytime he sees somebody and they're smelling his breath, they're like so horrified and they run away. And he's wondering, what's going on? Why is everybody running away from me?
Yeah.
And then Patrick helps him out, trying to figure out what it is. And he's like, maybe it's because you're ugly, SpongeBob.
Yeah.
And he starts taking it so at heart. And what's so funny about this episode is that it is just so wonderfully exaggerated. Like every single fish's reaction to his breath is like comedy gold.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Rewatch it and watch everybody's reaction. Like
the
my eyes guy.
My leg.
Oh yeah, we should mention the Wilhelm scream of this show is I guess Mr. Lawrence must have recorded him just yelling, "My leg!" And then they have now used that throughout the whole show sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it's just this funny background, "My leg!"
My leg!
And it's so funny.
Yeah.
But then the episode goes so far on like him having like identity issues and he's self-doubting himself when it's just he has bad breath. Like that's it. Like I don't know. There's something I just love how far that
I don't know
episode
why,
goes.
but that episode reminds me of the Suds episode where Patrick tries to like fix SpongeBob's sickness because he has suds.
That's a very creative episode.
And he fills him with water and he just expands so big, and Patrick's like, "Oh no, I'm shrinking."
Like that's
I think that's my funny line.
That's the creative. That's the
line.
creativity of SpongeBob at its brilliance. Like instead of SpongeBob getting sick or having the flu, he gets suds
because he's a sponge.
Because he's a sponge. That's so brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Another thing, like I think I watched that episode one day on DVD when I was sick from school, and that episode made me feel worse. But not a good time.
So Evan, what's another episode you like?
A couple of other noteworthy episodes that I'd like to talk about are episodes that are centered around Sandy and SpongeBob. There's one episode I'll talk briefly on because it's a very basic moral. The squirrel jokes episode. The Krusty Krab talent show comes back because Squidward made it so popular. It comes back and SpongeBob is the leading act this time so it's kind of a backwards sort of sequel to the Culture Shock episode where the Krusty Krab talent show comes back, and then SpongeBob's a stand-up comedian and he has no jokes at all. And so when he sees Sandy, she's like the only friend cheering him on and smiling. He decides to make really racist jokes about squirrels. And
is it racist or specious?
It's specious.
It causes Sandy to go out in public and be mocked and ridiculed at like the grocery store or whatever. So Stanley very kindly talks to him saying, "Please, no more of these jokes." And SpongeBob promises, and then he breaks it, and then the way Sandy gets back at him is I'm not even going to spoil it for you. It's truly hilarious.
Oh,
but
do I will say spoiler warning because I have to talk about one part that still to this day makes me howl with laughter.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a little spoiler of what she does to get back at him to prove her point is that SpongeBob goes to visit her. And she just goes all out acting like a white trash, dumb squirrel.
Redneck.
With the redneck with the overalls and like changing her voice to like a stupid person.
And the alfalfa haircut.
Yeah. So she takes off his helmet to like, that's filled with water.
So that he can breathe.
Well, no, she takes it off to put her like flowers in, and he can't breathe. And she goes, "Oh yeah, you're a sea creature. Now, what was that thing that sea critters need? And then she's saying like a bunch of times, and it shows a close up of her Adam's apple that's just moving up and down.
Oh god!
And I don't know what it is. It still makes me laugh to this day. Like, why is her Adam's apple moving so much? And why do they have the need to like?
Women don't have Adam's apples, so that's even better.
But they show it in detail by punching into a close up of it just moving up and down, and it's like just that bizarre. Like there's very specific.
This show
things.
gives no fucks. Remember that when it comes to logic.
It's just very specific things about this show that make me laugh, and like the fact that they have to punch in on her Adam's apple just wiggling up and down is fucking hilarious.
So, the moral of that episode is, please, if someone is offended by something, don't fucking keep doing it.
Yeah.
Like, there's some people I can think of in my life who really need to learn that lesson.
Well, actually, I kind of look at it as, like, don't just specifically make fun of something just that, because at the end, he makes fun of sponges, he makes fun of crabs, he makes fun of everybody.
He does what every successful comedian learns to do. He branches out his material rather than just sticking to one
and he
shtick.
reins it in a little.
Yeah, it would be like if Russell Peters or any other comedian who has
Ricky Gervais.
Or it'd be like if Ricky Gervais just had one act where he just talks about the same thing over and over again, or Russell Peters just made jokes at the expense of Indian people. Because Russell Peters' comedy shtick is way beyond like making jokes at the expense of his own race. He makes jokes at the expense of everyone. Mm-hmm. So, a good lesson for any wannabe comedians out there, and anyone who just, in this climate of, if you think the world is in a state of, we can't make jokes anymore, A, you're wrong, and B, watch this episode and to understand why you're wrong. So,
what's the other Sandy episode?
The other Sandy episode is actually an episode that has sparked a ton of fan theories. Or there's one that the fans can agree on. The Karate Choppers episode is an episode where people would like to think the whole episode is about sex. And I have to be honest, once you apply the logic to how the episode works, not only does it make sense, but it makes me want to go back and look at some of the Disney epics and think of, like, wow, there was sexual innuendo everywhere in Disney. Like, it's actually... the subliminal messaging is just off the charts. But we're not talking about Disney. Okay, that's for another show.
What about Karate Choppers?
Karate Choppers is an episode... The plot of the episode is SpongeBob and Patrick do karate, like, recreationally as often as they can. They enjoy it so much, but Mr. Krabs orders them to stop, or SpongeBob gets fired because it's impeding his ability to be productive at his job. So, the reason why it's metaphorical to sex is because, or at the very least casual sex, because SpongeBob and Sandy aren't committed at all. And, well, they're not. I mean, at the very most, like, this episode shows that they can have a friends with benefits thing going on.
Do they ever date in the show?
No, but like I said, the Tea of the Tree Dome doesn't need to be about dating, but there is so much of the allegory. There are so many metaphors for a first date experience, like you want to impress the new girl.
Let's go back to the karate.
So Karate Choppers, it starts with SpongeBob comes home and why is Sandy waiting in his home? Like, why would she be there? And they do karate, and then she goes home, and then he calls her up on the phone late at night to try and do karate through the phone, and then she hangs up saying, "Nice try, SpongeBob," which is a stab at booty calls and like late night text saying, "I can't sleep. What are you up to?" or "What are you wearing?" or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that fails, and then they're at the grocery store, and Sandy is distracted by everything. She thinks everything around her has to do with karate. And the same thing happens to SpongeBob. Like, he's at work, and he thinks a customer is Sandy because he keeps seeing her that way. And there's just little things, too. Like, SpongeBob, says, "Safety first," and he winks, like, literally at the camera. So
wow.
No, watch the episode again. Like, because I rewatched it the night before this recording, so just to remind myself of where all the innuendos are. But I'm not quite sure what the moral of the episode is, because in the end, Mr. Krabs tells them to stop. They can't stop. And then it turns out that, doing karate can actually make money. So is the moral, like, go into porn?
Mr. Krabs becomes almost like a pimp.
Oh, God. Like, "I love karate. I love money, eh?
I hate all of you."
I want to just... Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Evan. Oh, my God, I get you guys mixed up all the freaking time when I say names.
My name is Lyle.
Lyle. What's another noteworthy episode?
Okay. And we probably should, like, move on after, like, this, if you want to, like, talk about maybe one more episode, but let's just keep the episode moving. But anyways, my favorite, another great episode is Chocolate with Nuts.
Oh, that's a great one.
That is such a classic episode of, like, SpongeBob and Patrick doing stuff together. And it's just, like, it's been a little while since I've seen the episode, but I know it's them trying to sell chocolate to, like door-to-door sales, which isn't really popular anymore, like, bothering people in the middle of the day trying to sell stuff.
The internet kind of killed that business.
Yeah, you can't really do that anymore, but, like, it's just funny how they fail every time to sell frickin' chocolate. Like, Patrick,
the easiest thing in the world to sell. They can't sell it.
Yeah, and, like, Patrick even goes so far, he's like, "What do you want?" "I love you."
Because he does that because SpongeBob says, "You have to show the customer some love," and Patrick takes it literally. It's so funny.
Shout out to my shout out to my my older sister. Her favorite fish in this show is that green fish, who later in osmosis they call him Tom. So we're like, "Hey, okay, his name is Tom." So we remembered that, and we just howled with laughter when this green fish later on to be the infamous chocolate-loving maniac guy in that episode.
Chocolate!
He chases him after. He chases after them and, like, "Guys, just sell him the chocolate. He obviously wants it." And then that wraps up the end of the episode. Like, he actually just pays, like, I don't know, like thousands of dollars for all of this chocolate. And then what do they do with the money? You think they invest or, like, do something, put it in a bank? No, they just go to a fancy restaurant with the old lady and her daughter or whatever. And
so how long have you two ladies known each other? What? What did he say?
What did he say?
They're selling chocolates!
Chocolates!
I remember when that was invented. Oh, God. Yeah, no, the show can be really, really raunchy and really, really edgy when it wants to.
Oh, I find the episode Sailor Mouth an edgy episode.
I love that episode.
He said...
Like a dolphin sound. And apparently there was some controversy surrounding it about encouraging kids to swear.
Oh my God.
Which is kind of funny because it reminded me, going back to our last episode, or our last podcast about Rugrats, is that there's also a Rugrats episode where Angelica learns a swear word as well. Because she was on this show, like a kid show, and she overheard, like, the girl that's the host of this kid show that, like, hates her job. She says, "All these kids are a bunch of," and then, like, it would always cut away or there'd be a sound. So Angelica starts to say that word and horrifies all the adults. And the same thing happens in Sailor Mouth, where they learn all these bad words.
Yeah, no, a lot of the big, like, kid shows of the late 90s, early 2000s had that episode where a character swears, and it's always controversial. Like, Arthur did the same thing. Like, it was a later episode that I only saw when I was an adult, but once you see it, it's like, why is this controversial? Like, because it's implied that a kid swears. You want to watch a show about a kid swearing, watch South Park. The Mothers Against Canada has been trying to take that down for years. Blame Canada!
Yeah.
Can I go through a run through of my favorite quotes from this show?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
An absolute run through just all of them.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Cody has a piece of paper on him.
I have notes. I need to. There are no
prepped for this.
He was very prepared.
Yeah.
in the Bubble Buddy episode, SpongeBob makes a bubble that's a friend and puts him in the bathroom in the beach and then holds up the line for the bathroom for like 2 hours to the point where one guy is like, "That's it! Open up to the door, there's a bubble," and then SpongeBob's like, "Hey, you're done, Bubble Buddy," and they walk away. This one fish in this pretentious voice just goes, "He kept us waiting for a bubble." One of my favorite fucking lines. It still makes me laugh.
A guy dies as a result of SpongeBob's like naivety.
Scooter, the kind of surfer dude.
Yeah,
guy. Yeah.
He made me experience high tide.
Buries him in the sand and he dies.
Oh Lord.
And following after that, they're all like complaining about what Bubble Buddy did to him, all these terrible things, and Squidward just yells out, "He made me provide excellent service."
One of the we have to talk about, to segue into this, like, where the show is a meme gold mine.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like meme culture has taken this like show and turned it into its own thing.
Yeah,
like,
even I know we were talking about it before. I was trying to remember the term it was called, but like there's these things called gross-ups.
Yeah.
In the show, where it's like this very detailed, disgusting-looking painting frame that is just it's burned into your memory after you see any of these.
It's
just
it's not there for long, but it sticks with you.
And
it sticks with you for a long time.
One of the most famous ones that did get turned into a meme was when in the Home Sweet Pineapple episode where SpongeBob has to crash with Squidward. Like Squidward's like half asleep and he's like, "Good night, SpongeBob." Squidward's eyes snap open and they're all like bloodshot because like, "Good night, SpongeBob," and he kicks him out. Like I remember seeing that Squidward's eyes like just bloodshot and opening on the screen because he realizes that SpongeBob is sleeping in his bed. I remember howling the first time I saw that when I was a kid.
People type Google image Squidward's unsure face.
Oh, from Just One Bite.
Yes. Well, actually, Just One Bite, we talked about it before. I want to briefly mention that there's a deleted scene from Just One Bite, because the premise is Squidward just hates Krabby Patties, and even though he hasn't tried one yet, and then SpongeBob keeps pressuring him to try one, he eventually gives in, and he just pretends that he hates it at first, but then he just loves it behind everyone's back, so he ends up just being addicted to it. So, in the middle of the night, he breaks into the Krusty Krab to get a bunch of Krabby Patties, and in a deleted scene that had to have been cut from it because this episode premiered around September of 2001.
I looked it up. It actually aired in November of 2001. So like 9/11 was still 2 months away, but it was fresh in the world's mind.
So he's trying to break into the Krusty Krab, and he's like, "I wonder if there's a security system." So he looks up and he's like, "What? A bucket of water just above the door? What kind of security system is that?" So he opens it, spills. Okay, yeah, that sure stopped me. And he goes, "Wait a minute. That's gasoline." And then a match just comes out of nowhere, drops it, and blows him up. And they cut that because of the sensitivities about 9/11 around that.
Explosions.
So. Because occasionally I'll see that episode on YTV, and it does have that deleted scene in there. But on all the DVD prints and Nickelodeon, they don't have that in.
Years later, like, they eventually brought it back, but for a while, though, you couldn't air.
Yeah.
Tons of shows did this. Movies did this.
Music albums were, like, banned, too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, another, one episode I actually... Oh, we completely almost glossed over something. Noteworthy episodes involve a superhero duo or a past their prime, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, played by the now deceased the late Ernest Borgnine and the late Tim Conway.
Yeah.
Do you know what's something I noticed about that episode?
What?
After rewatching it? It is actually an episode that predicts how fandom ruins properties.
Yes. So they were ahead of their time before Rocko's Modern Life brought back that special on Netflix.
Yeah. Or just anything in general, like dragging like a franchise or something that closed out of retirement and just bringing it back, and then they produce like a boring has-been episode or special that just has nothing to do, and the fans just go, "Wow, that was even better than the old show." It's like they're in denial almost. Because like the Mermaid
Man... Star Wars fans. Star Wars fans hate anything after... Return of the Jedi.
Because Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy are like a play on Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
They were like these underwater superheroes, and then they end up being like retired old men, and SpongeBob and Patrick pressures them to come back.
Yeah.
And they're like, it has one of my favorite parts where they're in the rocking chair.
Up,
And away! They just rock faster.
Yeah. Evil!
My favorite part of the episode is when like SpongeBob's trying to like coax Mermaid Man and he's like, "Stop shouting, I'm napping! It's not me, you old goose!"
Disgusting
Like
close-up.
another really gross close-up in that.
Yeah.
My favorite one is actually the third one with Man Ray.
Oh yeah.
And do you know who's
is that the team-up episode?
No, the team-up episode was the fifth one.
The fourth
Funny,
and fifth one.
I
There's a lot of
like
this shit.
I like the even-numbered Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episodes than the odd ones.
What is it?
Sorry, no, I like the opposite. I like the odd ones than the even ones.
Yeah.
What is this, Star Trek?
Yeah, I know.
Every other one's good, the other ones suck.
Yeah.
Man Ray is like probably one of my favorite minor characters as well. Just his voice.
Do you know who voices him?
No.
John Rhys Davies.
Who?
Gimli.
Oh my
Gimli
God.
from Lord of the Rings.
No
Sala
way.
from Indiana Jones. Yeah, that's John Rhys Davies.
Wow.
Just that episode, just them just frustrating him, and then
Yeah.
the tickle belt and everything.
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
fucking hilarious.
And a meme was born out of that episode too.
Which one?
It's not my wallet, where it's like, look, this is
Oh
your
yeah,
wallet, right?
yeah.
Yep. And your name is Patrick Starr. Yep. And I found this on the ground, so it must be yours. It makes sense to me. Then take it. It's not my wallet. Yeah.
My favorite line. He says, like, I opened up a checking account and I have checks with little poodles on them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great episode.
That's great.
So I think we should
we
bring
move
this on home and
into-
talk about what's next on the list to talk
Should
about.
we talk about the theatrical releases?
Yes.
Of
So
Mr. Squarepants.
in 2004, one quick thing I want to get to before that is very quickly. The episode that talks about Mr. Krabs' greed, I think, is either A, One Krabs Trash, or B, Krabby Land. Krabby Land is a short episode where he turns the Krusty Krab into an amusement park to capitalize on children's money, and the amusement park is so shoddy that it just doesn't work, and then they try to blame him, but before they can blame him, he's like running away with a bag of money, and he literally says, "I don't care about the children, I just care about their parents' money." And in the One Krabs Trash episode, that's where SpongeBob has the number one guy's hat, and SpongeBob decides that rather than sell it for millions of dollars, which is what it's worth, he returns it to its rightful owner, the guy who was number one, and SpongeBob puts the hat back in its grave, and then Mr. Krabs says literally, "Am I really going to defile this man's grave for money? Of course I am!"
It's one of my favorite
Oh,
lines.
God.
And even before that, too, when he's seeing Squidward come to a grave and he's crying, and you're like, oh, what's he, who
Oh,
died?
I love
He
that.
goes up to the grave and it says, "Here lies Squidward's hopes and dreams."
What a baby. It's like, what a baby.
I know we'll get into the movie, of course, but after we talk about the movie, can we just go back to just little fun facts that I noticed? 'Cause
Yeah.
I noticed one that will probably blow your
sure.
your mind, especially
we
Lyle.
could save it to
Well,
the
we're
end.
going to
Yeah, for
talk
sure.
about...
We got to touch on the movie,
Yeah,
for sure.
but
So, movies.
in SpongeBob...
Yes.
In
There's gonna be 3 of
2004...
them soon.
In 2004, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, directed by Steven Hillenburg, hit theaters, and I remember it actually hit theaters the same month as The Incredibles, and it was the second Nautical movie after Shark Tale. That fall. I hate Shark Tale.
God.
We forgot to give Shark Tale a dishonorable mention in our bad movie episode, but when we do another bad movie episode, we'll talk about Shark
Maybe
Tale.
we could talk about DreamWorks sometime.
So
That's a whole different subject.
yeah, so
Yeah.
SpongeBob.
And if you guys ever call me up and say, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast on an Illumination?" I will hang up immediately.
Okay.
I
We will note that.
I don't give two shits about
So,
Illumination.
okay, so the point is, the SpongeBob movie, the story, basically, Cody has talked about us last time on our 90s show about a philosophy.
Yes.
If you're going to turn a TV show into a movie, the stakes of the movie have to be higher than any episode previously done. Or it's
Absolutely.
not going to have the same appeal, and people are going to be like, why did we pay to see this? Why can't you just watch this?
I can't believe we're paying to see something that we could just watch at home for free.
Yeah.
If you ask me, everyone in this series is a big sucker.
Especially you!
We'll get to them later, folks. They're coming. They're coming.
The other yellow
Yeah.
characters.
The other, yeah.
That's another
So,
episode.
But anyways, so the plot of the movie is basically this. Mr. Krabs opens up a second Krusty Krab restaurant right next door to the first Krusty Krab, because that's productive franchising, right? So Plankton is so angry that he discovers that and at this point in the show, he's tried everything to get the Krabby Patty formula, to raising an army of his relatives, to trying to steal SpongeBob's brain, but this time Plankton gets the biggest, most evil plan to actually steal the Krabby Patty formula. And SpongeBob is expecting to be promoted as manager of the second Krusty Krab, but Mr. Krabs picks Squidward instead, and the reason for that is because he just thinks Squidward is more mature than SpongeBob is. He literally says, like, you're just a kid. And the whole movie is designed to be, from that point on, the whole movie is a coming-of-age tale for not necessarily leaving childhood behind, but being mature when it's needed, but still being a kid at heart.
That is the most brilliant way to end off SpongeBob. At least in my
I think the show should have just stopped there, and other kids could have gone back to it.
Absolutely.
But, so, the point is, Plankton's evil plan is he steals the crown of King Neptune, the ruler of the underwater world, which we've never... Actually, we saw him in one episode.
But he was a different design.
Completely different design and a completely different voice.
Yeah.
In the movie, he's voiced by the great Jeffrey Tambor. And Jeffrey Tambor, as King Neptune, is funny, he's obsessive, he's just a great character.
And here's the debate. Is he thinning or is he bald?
Thinning!
Is he thinning or bald? That's the debate.
Yeah. Bald! Bald! Bald!
My eyes!
So then, Plankton steals this crown, which covers his bald spot, and then he dumps the crown on the other side of the ocean in, like, the most dangerous, uncharted territory any man or fish can ever go to. And when SpongeBob learns that Mr. Krabs has been accused of stealing this crown, it's up to him to decide, am I going to go halfway across the ocean to get the crown back and risk my life to save my boss? And the short answer is yes, and he has to tag Patrick along with him. And one of the funniest jokes in the movie for me, and they ruined it in the trailer because they show it in the trailer. It's like, Mr. Neptune very sternly said, the stakes are this: SpongeBob has to go across the ocean to get King Neptune's crown back to save, and if he fails, Neptune kills Mr. Krabs. Like, literally kills him. And so, it says, be back here with my crown in exactly 10 days. Patrick butts in out of buttfuck nowhere and says, he could do it in 9 days, 8 days, 7 days, 6 days. Patrick! 5! Patrick, shut up! And it's like, and then 6 days it is then. So SpongeBob has 6 days to go across the ocean to get Mr. King Neptune's crown back.
Yeah, you forgot to mention Neptune's daughter Mindy helped him along the way.
Neptune's daughter Mindy is played by Scarlett Johansson before she was Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, before she was huge.
Yeah. This
was been around like Lost in Translation era.
Yeah, 2003, 4, yeah.
2004.
You know, one thing I always thought about Mindy, have you guys ever seen Ghost World?
No.
Ghost World, no.
Okay. It's based on a graphic novel, and I swear to God, Mindy looks just like the main character from Ghost World, Enid Coleslaw, because she has like the bowl like haircut and the thick rimmed glasses.
There's like a Velma.
Yeah, she looks like Velma. Yeah, she looks just like Enid Coleslaw from Ghost World, and no one has ever brought that up before. And I thought that was like a connection because Scarlett Johansson's in Ghost World.
Yeah,
she doesn't play the character, but she's like her best friend.
I think that's like an obscure reference that maybe the showrunners were going for.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. But anyways, so then they go on this episode, and while SpongeBob and Patrick being the only people who can stop Plankton steals the Krabby Patty secret formula, and he actually sells. The Krusty Krab goes out of business, and Plankton takes the recipe and sells Krabby Patties at the Chum Bucket. And you think that would be like all Plankton wants, but Plankton goes even further. Plankton gives free Chum Bucket helmets with every purchase of a Krabby Patty, and because Krabby Patties are so popular at the Chum Bucket, everyone in town has one, and they all have mind control devices. So before long, Plankton enslaves the entire town to basically build statues of himself, and it looks like a post-apocalyptic world. And Neptune doesn't do fuck all about this because he's too distracted by his bald spot. They literally explain that's why he can't do anything. So, so basically, SpongeBob has to save the whole town, and it's a very heartfelt, more heartfelt than you would expect, because there's a scene where SpongeBob and Patrick are literally like on their deathbeds, like saying their last words, and it gets really heartfelt. And then, of course, they save the day in the most bonkers nautical nonsense way possible. David Hasselhoff from Baywatch completely bails them out.
And we should also mention that well, not only is that hilarious, like the live action stuff, but even in the show, there's a lot of live action gags in the show that are so thrown in there to throw off your expectations.
Yeah.
And it's so cheap looking too, which makes it funnier.
Yeah. But they had like a couple $1 million budget for this movie, so the production value is still really good, but when it's cheesy, it's really cheesy. Like, especially because there's like David Hasselhoff literally turns into a motorboat and then a launch pad.
If you ever have the DVD
so funny.
And you watch the making of how they did that, how they made him look like a motorboat just not moving,
it's so good.
They just have him on a gurney just dragging him in the water, and it's hilarious.
They actually did a mock-up dummy of him that's like 20 feet long, and they
Yeah.
put it in real sea water, and they filmed... They did that like Space Jam style where they filmed a practical set and they drew the characters on later.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it's really cool. Or Space Jam, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, that style of animation. Okay. So, they take the Twisted Sister song and give it the most awesome spin-off ever. Goofy Goober. Rock! So, you think that would be where the show ends, and...
I wish.
No.
Which, by the way, I have to say, I said it to Lyle right before we started recording.
Yeah.
That when I saw that movie in the theaters for my sister's birthday.
Oh yeah.
After that scene ends, after like Plankton gets trampled on by a bunch of fish going inside of the Krusty Krab, and the song just ends and it fades to black. My sister must have thought that was the end of the movie because she shouted out loud, "No, I want more movie!" it was so adorable, and it was so like, oh god.
And then it comes on later where it's like, and Plankton's like, "Come on, I was just kidding.
Yeah.
I will destroy all of you."
Yeah, it's almost like, yeah.
So then, you think that would be the end? But no. Not only were there 2 more movies, and
one's on the way.
One just got it actually just got released.
A couple weeks ago. Because a couple weeks ago, in Canada, because we're Canadian, we are the first country, thanks to COVID-19, we are the first country outside of the United States to release commercially SpongeBob Squarepants, the SpongeBob movie Sponge on the Run. Yeah. Now that's the 3rd movie, and they've completely changed the animation style from 2D hand-drawn to stop motion claymation.
It's not really claymation. It's just like it's computer animation.
It is.
It's the same as like the Peanuts movie.
Yeah.
That's the thing I liked about all 3 films. I haven't seen the newest one yet, but like I like how there's a different style of animation in all 3.
Well, if you're gonna go to the theater, just remember your mask and social distance.
I will probably wait till that comes out on streaming. Actually,
we're hoping to see it this week.
I'm only seeing Tenet and Dune in theaters, but that's off the. Fair enough. That's just off the.
So save that for the COVID episode. So basically, I don't know, the plot of this movie feels recycled from an episode that they did about Gary Goes Missing or something.
Hang on, we're talking about the 3rd movie.
The second movie. The second movie is...
I saw it.
I didn't see this. Am I the only one out of you two who has not seen the second one?
I saw it.
Okay, then you two can talk about it.
I saw it with my annoying roommate.
I didn't mind it. It was, it kind of, I mean, of course it provided me with some sort of nostalgia, but I like, it's not as iconic and as like fitting to include it in with the original 3 seasons and the original movie.
It's very wonky, I find.
It's wonky, but the fact that like Hillenburg and his crew kind of came back to put their own kind of touch into it, it kind of was more like catering us as like old school fans of the show more than it is to like introduce it or keep it going for newer generations.
It has some weird ideas. Like there's a scene where they meet an intergalactic dolphin.
Yeah.
They travel through.
Like that's the stuff I like.
Warps.
That kind of reminded me of like old school SpongeBob.
What's the plot of the movie?
They go to the surface and fight a pirate played by Antonio Banderas.
Yeah, I can't really. I'm really faulty on the plot.
I forget the plot honestly. Like Antonio Banderas steals something and they have to get it back.
But what's funny is
so recycled from the first movie.
I have to make a shout out to Red Letter Media about one quick thing. So they did a video once, and I forget what movie they were talking about, but they were trying to see like, wait a minute, is this a sequel or is it a reboot? Or
they say that a lot.
Should it just be called a C-boot? And what's ironic, because it's a C-boot, is that I look at SpongeBob Sponge Out of Water as a C-boot, because it is a sequel, but there's a vibe to it where it feels like it's rebooting, because it reintroduces everybody at the beginning as if you don't know who the hell SpongeBob is or has any idea. Like, it kind of restarts everything, so in a way it is a C-boot.
Yeah,
and Evan, it is similar to the first one. The only difference is that SpongeBob and Plankton team up, so it's more their story rather than SpongeBob and Patrick.
Yeah.
And it feels... I've seen the trailers, so like they go on the mainland and they're CG characters and they turn into superheroes when they're on land.
Yeah, I didn't like that too much.
I think that was basically Paramount, because Paramount is the studio that distributes the SpongeBob property. But I think because Paramount owns Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
So I think that was Paramount's way of piggybacking on the
Avengers.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Bless you.
The continuous superhero craze that has still not ended. And is still driving the industry.
But with the first movie, like, to go back to that, like, I just love how it's such a perfect narrative, too.
Yeah.
Like, it's that great kind of hero's journey kind of stuff that I like just in movies in general, where one character has, like, a goal, he doesn't end up getting the goal, and then he's pushed into an adventure that is out of his reach, and he kind of comes back learning a lesson. But there's parts in it that kind of is like a funny subversion of those archetypes.
Yeah.
But the part that I freaking love, because it's so funny, is that he gets rejected from being the manager for Krusty Krab 2.
Yeah. And
on a kind of binge night of drinking, Instead, it's ice cream.
It's ice cream.
Goofy Gooberberry Sunrise.
Yeah.
He ends up just eating so much ice cream that he ends up having like a night of drinking, wakes up hungover and all dizzy, and he's all like just...
He looks sickly.
He looks disgusting.
Yeah. No, that's the idea.
That's probably one of my favorite parts in the movie.
Yeah, that part was funny.
Yeah, that was great.
Should we get into the decline of the show?
Yes, I want to
very
briefly touch on that.
There's not really much to say about it other than, like, the original creators left after the movie came out, and this was after Season 3.
So Season 4 onward.
Season 4 onward, and I know that they came back for a few episodes, which I guess I'll give a shot someday. I haven't really given it, but...
It sucks, because we have Canadian Netflix, and they do have SpongeBob, but it's only the 4th season.
Yeah. You fucking bastards.
Like, damn it. Just like the first 3.
And I think you said it last time, Evan, where it feels like the people that took over after Hillenberg and all them left said, oh, people like this show when it's zany. Okay, just keep it zany. Keep it cranked up to 11.
And not only that,
as long as possible. And they don't realize that can become just as boring if it's just tuned down to 1.
Yeah.
I feel like it gets very mean-spirited, too.
It's incredibly mean-spirited. And there's 3 episodes I want to briefly talk about that, or 2, really, that demonstrate this point. There is like Cody was saying, it felt like the new writers said, people like the show when it's edgy, and they like it when it's zany, so let's crank up the zaniness and the edginess to 11, and we're going to run it into the ground. That's how it was. Episodes, I have seen so few episodes from post-movie SpongeBob that I can't just talk much about it, but I know where, like, the direction they went. And so, one episode I want to talk about, or 2 episodes I want to talk about are Skill Crane. The plot of the episode is Mr. Krabs installs a crane machine in the Krusty Krab so that to make more money, because he gets all the quarter revenue from the machine. SpongeBob is very good at the crane machine, that he can win stuff easily. Squidward is not skilled at the skill crane. So Squidward is so desperate to be good to win one time at this crane machine game, and you'd think that the episode would end on a moral where, well, first of all, the episode gets really like depressing, like because Squidward is suffering like really badly. Like there is an episode where there's a part of the episode where he goes home and he can't even pick up his television remote, so he decides to use his eyeball to turn on the TV, and when that doesn't work, it's not funny at all. He screams in the most shrill, pain-driven like scream. It's not funny at all, and I just feel genuinely bad for Squidward. And then it gets to the point where Squidward like bankrupts himself. He puts the deed to his house in the machine to win at this thing, and you'd think that they were onto something, like because SpongeBob says, "Okay, Squidward, you have a problem. I'm gonna help you." SpongeBob says, "Here's how you be good at the machine. Here's how you be good at the game." He teaches Squidward how to win. Squidward wins, and Squidward is the most pompous piece of shit about winning one time, when at this point SpongeBob has won 50 times.
Yeah.
So Squidward wins once after making himself insane and depressed, and then he's a big piece of shit about it. So you think that they had a moral, and then they lost it.
Well, have you ever heard of the creepypasta Squidward suicide?
Oh yeah.
Is that the one where he's like, I can't seem to get happy, and he hangs up news?
Like from an actual episode. This is like a fan.
It's an
story.
urban legend kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just some like someone made a story about an episode, like an unaired SpongeBob episode, and you can find it on YouTube. It's just there's a lot of episodes where Squidward's just at the end of his rope.
Yeah.
So. Actually, my least favorite episode of the Golden Age of SpongeBob that kind of ties into just the mean-spirited type of stuff that I guess later on came way more prevalent is the episode Dumped. Where
I don't like that episode either. It's sad.
It's sad, and it's kind of out of character as well. Like, because basically what happens is SpongeBob or Gary the snail ends up like just clinging more onto Patrick now all of a sudden. And not wanting to go back to SpongeBob, and instead of like Patrick trying to like encourage like Gary to go back to your previous owner, Patrick just shrugs and go, "Well, sorry, SpongeBob, tough out of luck. Gary likes me now."
Well, the reason why is because
like what the hell?
Because SpongeBob he starts hanging around Patrick. But Patrick actually says, put the snail down and let him choose. Now, a lot of kids' entertainment has done that with a pet. Like, have you seen Air Bud?
I must have, but years ago. Okay. I can't even remember if I have seen
I'll refresh your memory. The premise is...
It's like a golden retriever.
He's a golden retriever who can play sports.
Yeah.
In the first movie, he winds up with this kid after being lost by this really evil Krusty the Clown type of entertainer. The movie ends with a trial happening after the big game where the evil clown tries to take Buddy the dog back, and the conflict resolution is put the dog down, let the dog choose who he wants to be with.
Yeah.
And that's literally how SpongeBob plays, but Gary chooses Patrick, you're right, in that episode, and the reason he did it is quite adorable.
Because
he had a cookie in his pocket.
And then,
so adorable.
And then he walks away with SpongeBob, and Patrick's just like, Gary, I thought what we had was special.
That was another relationship metaphor episode. Yeah.
Alright.
So, here's one thing I have to say, Lyle. Like, it will blow your mind about this one episode.
Okay.
Hooky?
Yeah, I remember that episode.
Hookies. So it's kind of like a peer pressure kind of thematic episode where SpongeBob and Patrick are trying to play on hooks, but it's so dangerous. Mr. Krabs is saying, don't do it. Yeah, fishing hooks. It's kind of a theme about drugs and peer pressure and all that.
Playing games like chicken and stuff.
Yeah, and their first launch off on the hook, and it cuts to like live action fishermen, like just like trying to get them, and like two guys are trying to get the rod, like they're struggling. So I did some research that was mind-blowing about this footage. So that footage of those fishermen in that episode is from a show from 1991 that only lasted one season called Fishing with John.
Oh,
actually?
Yeah. That show's on Criterion.
Is it?
Wow. Yeah,
Fishing with John Lurie, I think that was his name.
No, it wasn't John Lurie. It was something else.
Lurie, something
Lurie,
like
that was his name, yeah, John Lurie.
And it's a fishing show where it's kind of boring. I was kind of skimming through the episode. It's a bit mundane and just kind of like them guys going on fish.
Well, it's very dry.
Yeah. Like, he had William Dafoe on it.
William Dafoe, Dennis Hopper.
And
That's a great cast.
And the fisherman in that episode that they showed in SpongeBob was John Lurie and Jim Jarmusch.
Yeah, the
filmmaker Jim Jarmusch, the guy that made Patterson and Dead Man.
Well, John Lurie
in SpongeBob.
John Lurie acts a lot in Jim Jarmusch's work, like Down by Law.
Okay.
Stranger Than Paradise. Like he worked a lot with Jim Jarmusch, so yeah, they're like friends.
But I didn't know that it was from a source. I thought it was like they just shot it quickly. Because remember the Frankendoodle episode, the fisherman at sea? Like that's Mr. Lawrence.
Oh yeah.
Crying that he's like, oh, I lost my pencil. He gets it back at the end, and then he tries to finish his drawing, and his pencil breaks. Remember to bring a pencil sharpener.
That's the Frankendoodle episode. We're talking about a completely different episode, but
that is one of the. I remember as a kid, I was laughing. Like, I had to keep rewinding it. Because, like, one of the first things I rented from SpongeBob was the Halloween VHS that had a few episodes on there that were creepy. Yeah. And Frankendoodle. The scene where Frankendoodle is, like, chasing him with the pencil and erases the door. And he also erases, like, SpongeBob's pants and shows his butt. And then he erases his butt. I just kept rewinding that over and over again because I just could not stop laughing at it.
Yeah. Patrick has some really funny lines. Like, he gets wonked on the head, and it's like, "Where's the leak, ma'am?"
Finland!
Maybe Frankendoodle's in that poorly drawn pineapple. My favorite Patrick line is it from the movie? I can't remember.
I'll be the judge of that.
I'm upset. Why? I can't see my forehead.
That's not from the movie.
That's not from the movie? What episode's from that from?
I don't know.
Is that that might be from one of the newer episodes because there is an episode where Patrick's forehead literally gets wonked off and replaced with another cranium, and he becomes really smart. It's the classic, the dumb character is dumb for a reason, and here's the reason. Once you take that reason away, he'll be smarter. It's like with Homer Simpson had the crayon in his brain. Once you remove the crayon, he's smarter. But then...
So,
I want to... The last episode I want to talk...
okay, fine. One more episode.
We've
been talking about episodes for like 30 minutes.
We were wanting... I wanted to kind of... stress why the show tanked. We watched this, like, right before recording this. The polar opposite of Naughty Nautical Neighbors is an episode called Good Neighbor.
Oh, yeah, you were talking about this.
Because Lyle, I've watched Naughty Nautical Neighbors many times. You are howling the whole way through. Mm-hmm. This episode only made you laugh once.
It pissed me off, yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, the whole idea, it's just, like, SpongeBob and Patrick, they never leave Squidward alone, and they ruin his house. Even if it's by accident, they take no responsibility for it, and Squidward suffers the entire way through. And the difference between that episode and Naughty Nautical Neighbors is, like what I said, they're not doing it to hurt Squidward, they're doing it to spite each other. But in this Good Neighbors episode, they act so oblivious to, like, Squidward's needs or what he's, like, how he's always expressing, leave me alone, and they don't leave him alone. And it's just, like, it makes me feel really annoyed at SpongeBob and Patrick.
Yeah.
And I hate it when they do episodes like that. That's another thing that got into the decline. There was more and more episodes where SpongeBob and Patrick were outright dicks to Squidward. And
not only that, like, I'd like to give a shout out to a YouTuber called The Mysterious Mr. Enter. Go check out his channel. He made a video about, like, the top 10 episodes that turned Patrick into an asshole. Because apparently Patrick apparently in the show's decline has gone from a really charming, like, lovable best friend to a douchebag who, like, is almost a bully to SpongeBob.
Is Big Pink Loser in that list?
It's actually, no, the entire list consists of episodes post-movie.
Because you remember that episode, Big Pink Loser, right? Where Patrick just copies SpongeBob?
Yeah, but
and then SpongeBob turns it around and pretends to be Patrick.
That was a bit of a heartfelt episode.
Well, that episode is a ripoff of an episode of Recess. Going back to our previous podcast.
Oh, yeah.
The same thing happens where Mikey pretends to be Vince, and then Vince turns it around and pretends to be Mikey.
Oh.
Did you ever notice that?
No, I don't remember that episode.
But, so isn't it interesting how, like, SpongeBob stole episodes from other shows or jokes from other shows?
I mean, that happened a lot, actually.
Everything's been written, you know?
Like, there's been episodes where I noticed it, like, Recess is kind of, like, similar to this episode of Hey Arnold, and Hey Arnold about, you know,
and
Rugrats.
Arthur,
it
all matters that you just take a different spin on it.
So what did you want to talk about next?
It's just funny how, like, Patrick takes the same he becomes like less and less likable, almost like Homer Simpson, like with jerk ass Homer. Homer's been appearing a lot in this episode. Maybe we should talk about the Simpsons someday, Evan.
Yeah, we will.
But
I won't go into depth about it, but I will make a special shout out to an episode that we'd be idiots to leave it out. The Krusty Krab training video.
Oh yeah.
That's it. That's all we'll say. Everyone just watch that episode. That is one of the I think that episode won an Emmy.
Oh wow.
I think it was nominated or it won.
That's the episode that is so like different from the show that it actually works.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's why it won an award.
Let's wrap this up here. Let's all give like a reason as to why each of us loves SpongeBob.
Sure. Evan, you go first.
Okay, yes. Thank you. I love SpongeBob because it, to me, represents childhood innocence, or at least the first 3 seasons represent maintaining childhood innocence while also having fun, but learning a few things, but also you just gotta laugh and just not give a shit at sometimes. I love it because the characters are brilliant. Like, Squidward is probably Patrick and Squidward are probably my favorite characters.
Yeah, me too.
They're so likable, yet they both have their differences. But and I love how the show takes stabs at real life. Like, every single character, even though it's a cartoon, they're all relatable in some way. Like, we all have that friend. I can't say about the crazy megalomaniacal business rival who's trying to enslave the whole town. or maybe
when you start your own business, you might encounter that.
Maybe, yeah.
And then you'd be looking at it with a new perspective.
Oh, yeah. So, maybe... Or, I mean, if you want to take a look at, like, how capitalism, like, can doom society, that's what the movie's all about. So, there are brilliant nuances, like, just implanted throughout the whole show and throughout the characters. And the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob are animation gold. They have had such an impact on our culture, the way we think about ourselves, and it's just brilliant. Check it out.
Alright, I can go next. That basically took the words out of my mouth. But one thing I'll give a special shout out. I love the music library of SpongeBob.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So many songs stick in my head, like, I think my favorite one is the Chase song, like...
The ukulele?
Yeah. There's like a...
So just like Arthur, this show has
a pretty good music library.
And it's a looped soundtrack.
And it's so, like, calming and, like, tropical, and, like, you're on a beach relaxing on vacation kind of stuff. It's very nicely, like, tied into the culture with, like, sea life and all that. Yeah, it's good that I wanted to mention that too.
It has like the same level. Like the music library is like up there with like Ren and Stimpy. On like just it makes me like always think of the show. It gets stuck in my head sometimes.
Remember the Pickles episode where it was all backwards because he's all messed up?
Oh yeah, I played them track backwards. I haven't checked that out yet, but I will look into it.
I laughed so hard when I noticed that it was backwards.
Lyle, one time you called Bubble Bass the Thanos of SpongeBob.
Yeah, because he comes in and wrecks everybody's shit. It's like, the best there is? I don't think so. You lose.
Not to interrupt your like speech about why you love it though, but I remember one time as a kid, because I used to like draw a lot. I used to draw like every cartoon character that I've ever watched.
Oh, cool.
And I went through a SpongeBob phase where I was drawing everybody. And that part in Pickles where he went, SpongeBob, I thought I ran you out of town. When he's standing at the doorway of the Krusty Krab, I paused it at that moment. And I was like, all right, I'm going to draw it out, right?
Yeah.
And I should have kept it to this day. I will still remember this. I drew it exactly like it. Nice. And I'm not kidding. It was exactly, it's almost like I put the paper on the screen like and just traced it. I did not trace it, and I was so proud of it, and I should have kept it, but it was that particular moment. So I became an artist. Because of Bubble Bass.
Like Squidward. And one of my last favorite music track is the one whenever like the characters are kind of being mocked at. It's like, if I had $1 for every brain you don't have, I'd have $1. Like, anytime characters are getting, like, mocked or made fun of, they always play that song.
The Jaws music is always funny. Anytime there's something intense.
Yeah, or anytime Patrick's doing something dumb, it's like...
That musical track became a meme because now people play that track over various serious situations. Like, I saw this one video where it's like, I put SpongeBob music over North Korea, and it's basically a North Korean military parade with that music playing.
My friends and I, my buddy Pat, we were debating whether
you have
or not to do...
a friend named Patrick
yes,
too. That's hilarious.
Well, then.
My buddy Pat, and he loves SpongeBob as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, my circle of friends, like Kathy and Pat, we all just adore SpongeBob. We quote it like pretty much every time we all hang out.
Yeah.
We were debating whether or not to make a series of shorts that was dramatic movies set to the music of SpongeBob.
Oh my god, that sounds fun.
Like sad violin to like, you know, some like drama movie or something like that.
Well, I've been seeing these YouTube videos lately, I think it was like last year, where people will take whole episodes of SpongeBob and recreate it in live action. Like, you just get some buddies and a camera.
Oh, I saw that. They did a pizza delivery.
Yeah, the pizza delivery episode.
That was great.
Yeah. Which is also a perfect episode, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that's another one of my favorites.
Yeah.
If I could recreate any episode, I would love to do Nautical Neighbors with you guys.
That would be funny.
I'm down. Sign me up, yeah.
I'm down.
Okay.
But my friends and I wanted to think of either doing that, like setting SpongeBob music to dramatic movies, or doing a movie trailer for the hash-slinging slasher.
Oh, yeah.
Showing his origins of him being a clumsy, fry cook, accidentally cuts off his hand, and then he gets hit by a bus, it goes to black, and then people start realizing, wait, why are the lights flickering?
Nosferatu!
They pick up the phone, hello, no one's there, and then they just see a guy across the street.
Yeah.
You want to make that an actual horror movie?
We wanted to make it an actual horror movie, like, trailer called
Call Blumhouse, they'll get it done.
They'll probably show it in, like, if there's ever a SpongeBob episode where he's at the movies and it's coming attractions, they'll probably show it.
So Cody, let's end this on a high note. Why do you love SpongeBob so goddamn much?
Because it's funny. Bye.
Because it's
Bye,
funny.
Guys. Bye, guys. I thought it was funny. I laughed. Goodbye. No. SpongeBob is... It's kind of funny because anytime people that are close to me, they think of SpongeBob, they immediately go to me. That's how much I've like kind of referenced.
You're quite a Nickelodeon head because you love Hey Arnold and like SpongeBob a lot.
Yeah.
But when I discovered SpongeBob and I really got into it, like when I was 9 or 10, like I remember just watching all these episodes on TV, and I actually had to write them down in my little notebook that I kept all my drawings or movie ideas or whatever. I just had to write down lists of episodes because this is before like I had the internet in my house, so I had to like be like, okay, I saw that one, I saw that one, I saw that one. Okay, I can skip that one. I already saw it or whatever. But then, I think it's also like it kind of at the time I met. Like, my mom met who I call my dad. He's technically my stepdad, and his two daughters, who are now my two sisters. Like, at the beginning, we weren't all kind of not getting along as much, but then SpongeBob, when we noticed that we all had, like, similar tastes in humor, and we'd sit down and we'd all watch it together, it kind of, like, made my siblings and I bond a little bit more. Because we just, like, laugh and quote it all the time, and, like, once I started noticing, like I mentioned before, like, it feels like there's a moral or a lesson just buried underneath all this nonsense and creativity, and the fact that it's, like, tied to, like, my kind of life of, like, you know, the Sea World, and, like, I don't know, and it kind of shaped a lot of my sense of humor growing up, and it is technically the last cartoon that I ever was into growing up, because I kind of stopped after that. I started watching just other stuff, or getting introduced to, like, and we'll talk about it later with, like, The Simpsons, or just more adult stuff, you know.
Yeah,
like,
we graduate out of, like, shows like this eventually. Yeah.
That was, like, the segue out, but I can honestly now look back with, like a different perspective, and now getting, like, the adult jokes now, and just appreciating the creativity and the zaniness of the show. It looking back in retrospect, it absolutely is my favorite kids cartoon of all time.
Yeah.
Like, it is up there, not even up there, it's in almost another league. Like, I loved Hey Arnold and, you know, Recess and Rugrats and, like, you know, all those ones, but SpongeBob is in a complete different league when it comes to just absolute comedy and zaniness because of its sound effects and its jokes.
Yeah,
is just all tied with like just things that would just make me laugh on a regular daily basis. And thank you so much, guys, for having me today. This was a joy talking about this show because, like, honestly, even watching it yesterday, kind of skimming through all those episodes, those first 3 seasons, was also just kind of a nostalgic bliss.
That's great. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But kind of letting it all out was like, okay.
Yeah.
Now I want to like save this show for like years to come. And let it become actually nostalgic, where I kind of forget about a lot of things. Because that's the good feeling about, like, going back to stuff where you're like, oh my god, I completely forgot about that. Because SpongeBob is so, like, I watch it every so often because it still makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Like, this show makes me laugh hysterically at little points. So.
It's like, does this show still hold up?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
It does.
Oh, yes.
And when we say the show, we exclusively mean the 3rd season. I wonder how the kids who are watching this episode are going to feel. If they, let's say you were born in 2010 and you're 10 right now, and you grew up with like newer episodes that came out in like 2015.
They'd have a different perspective.
They really would.
Yeah.
I guess
but
so. Yeah.
Please, kids, check out the first 3 seasons. They are amazing.
They're not on Netflix, but try to get a hold of them on DVD.
Or pirate. I don't know.
Or pirate.
You. Alright, everyone. Well, thanks so much, Cody, for coming out.
Thank you, guys. I'd love to come back again next time to talk about some other yellow people.
Alright. Well, thanks everyone. I hope you guys have a good day.
You too.